Hello potters. So we're back. It's been a couple hours and our underglaze has dried. The moisture from the glaze has seeped into the clay body and it's ready for carving now. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. I got a nice even coat on my piece. So the contrasting of the white clay as I carve away is really gonna pop out with this sort of royal blue underglaze I was using. So let's talk about tools that you're gonna need. A regular trimming tool, the ribbon side. This squared edge I think is really good for doing a little bit of Sgraffito because I can use this corner, angle it, and use it to remove like a small strip and get a pretty good line quality. So if you don't have anything else, this is the tool you're going to be using. If you do have a smaller set of trimming tools, that will give you a greater variance of line that you can use for your Sgraffito. Other good tools to have. There are some specialized tools that I use for this process because I love to draw, I love to illustrate, and I love finding ways that I can combine my love for drawing with my love of ceramics, and Sgraffito is a great way to do it. So I've invested in some, specialty tools that help me get a bigger, uh, you know, range of marks that I can make while doing Sgraffito. So this is actually called a Kemper Sgraffito tool. It's a double loop tool. You can see it's smaller than what we usually trim with, and it's got one side that's like a little bit longer and one side that's a little bit shorter. This is a great tool to have. I use this a lot for when I'm actually signing my name on the bottom of my pots because it removes a chunk of clay, like a strip of clay. Instead of like using a pencil or a needle tool, it kind of just shreds the clay and pushes it out of the way. This actually like incises a line into the clay. So this is really great even if you don't want to do a lot of Sgraffito. That makes a great mark for signing your pieces. So I'm going to keep that out. I've also got this little Pinpoint Tool, and this is great because it's like just a small rod and it's got like a little beaded edge on either end. You can see this one's like a little bit bigger. I forget what this tool is called. It's also by Kemper. But all the tools that I'm using tonight that weren't on our suggested materials list, I'm going to be sending out in the email where I'll include the slideshow from earlier, and I'll include the links to these tools. If you think they're cool, you can buy them for yourself. Kemper makes great ones. This is a really great tool. It's a little on the pricier side for such a specialized thing. You're really only going to be able to use it, for these like carving techniques. But this is called the Kemper wire stylus tool. And it's great because you're really going to remove like the smallest amount of clay using this. You'll get really fine lines. And since I sort of have a smaller piece, I really want to decorate the outside of it with a simple repetition of shapes that I find appealing. So I'm going to be using this a lot. This is the Kemper wire stylus. It's a really great tool. Other good tools to have around, maybe a knife if you want to do something that has more of a primitive mark, something that looks more scratchy, like some of the examples I showed you. Either a simple knife tool will, do the same because we're really just removing a small layer of clay from this outside that we've colorized to reveal the contrasting color of the clay underneath. And that's where all the decoration is going to come from. All right, so good things to have. I like this piece a lot. I like the shape of it. It's very much in line with some of the ideas that I'm working out in the studio right now. One of my favorite potters is a woman by the name of Toshiko Takeezu, and she made these big closed forms. That was sort of what made her famous. And the first time I saw her work, I was really just blown away that, a vessel form could be non-functional. She hides little beads inside of these closed forms, so if you pick them up, they rattle. And she also writes little messages on the interior of her forms. So I kind of like that the idea of a pot is that its natural life cycle is to break one day, and whoever happens to be around when one of her pieces breaks gets to enjoy a message from the artist. So I've actually hidden a message in this piece that hopefully won't get seen for 10,000 years, but I like that idea that each piece is sort of a time capsule. So this is sort of me, riffing from one of the ideas that Toshiko put out there about closed form. So I'm looking forward to decorating it with a couple of my favorite shapes that pops up a lot in my illustrations and some of my clay work. But that being said, I like this piece a lot, right? So I don't want to screw it up. So it's good for me to have like a little test piece. After, I knew I was going to do some Sgraffito, I rolled out just a tiny slab, maybe 1/3 of an 1/8 inch thick. So it has a lot of thickness that I won't have to worry about carving too far down. And I covered it in a black underglaze. And what I use this is for like a little test sheet, so I can practice the kind of marks I want to put on my piece, and be able to feel more confident when I start decorating the surface of this piece, because I'll have practiced. So I'm gonna reset my camera up. Over here. All right, and we can just play around with some of the different marks that we're going to be making first. And I'll start back here. All right, so let's start with our basic trimming tool. I'm going to be using the squared edge of your basic ribbon tool. It comes with anything. I'll just try some marks. I'm using the corner of my piece to remove that. And I'm just going to play with some different marks. Repetition is everything. A simple mark repeated almost ad nauseum takes on a significance through that repetition, where, a simple dash or dot becomes something, pretty elegant and elevated. So, I could repeat a simple pattern like this around my entire piece, and it'll take on a rhythm of its own that will be very satisfying for the viewer. Other things I see a lot of people do using just a basic trimming tool. It's just like these little dashes that you're sort of nesting in between the space of your previous mark. A simple pattern like this will, if you cover your entire surface in it, is going to be pretty appealing. And maybe just some wavy lines. Be really nice too. Been watching a lot of my favorite cartoon, rewatching. It's called Avatar: The Last Airbender, and it's it's sort of this story like about this kid who is like the master of all 4 elements, and he comes from a culture where this is pretty commonplace. Everybody can sort of master one element or another of the 4: fire, earth, water, and wind. But the Avatar, he can do all 4. And they use just like very simple waves and dashes, spirals to sort of, create these powerful symbols within each culture on the show. And I think it's just really solid design in this show, from character design to world building to these glyphs. It kind of shows that just like simple shapes can have a really strong effect on people. That's something I really like about a lot of pattern work that you see in ornamental iron. Just simple S and C curls repeated that create something a little bit more exciting. All right, but see, these are all just like basic patterns that you can repeat on the outside of your piece and get a, a nice simple surface that's really exciting to look at. But, since we're using a darker colored glaze that we've put on top and a lighter colored glaze underneath, You know, you could reverse that and kind of carve away and have your lines be a darker contrast in color. But like if I wanted to do something more figurative, like if I wanted, I don't know, I love the idea of memento mori, like this sort of reminder of our own mortality. I like it when I see that come up in art. And so, you know, simple things that are kind of juvenile iconography, like skulls and crossbones, I think are still a point of curiosity for me. So I'm just gonna say, like, maybe I want to do a Sgraffito skull. So this is when I'd use my #2 pencil, and I just lightly sketch on top of my clay the shape I'm gonna do. And I'm gonna do like a basic skull. You know, something a la like a Jolly Roger, or maybe if you're a comic book fan like me, something similar to the Punisher's logo. And I'm just gonna lightly sketch those shapes onto my piece. All right, so you can see here, I've sketched out where my skull is gonna be, and now let's like start removing it. So I'm gonna leave, I want the black areas to be sort of like a shadow for my piece. So I'm really subtracting a lot of clay just to get the white area showing. For the big areas, I'm gonna use my big loop tool. Just carve all that stuff out. And just to save myself some work, you know, I just wanna rough out a lot of that clay. See, I'm gonna take a lot of that stuff out. And then I'm gonna use one of my finer trimming tools. Just sort of get into the details. Not that this is a terribly detailed drawing, but you know, it could be a lot of work if I'm just using my little loop tool. So I want to get as much of this black clay out of here before I go back and really start cleaning everything up. All right, so I got like most of it out. You can start to see the skull coming out. Now I'm gonna get out my handy dandy Sgraffito double-ended tool. Always sign your pieces, especially if you're in a community studio, really sign your pieces. They will get lost and somebody else will be happy to find them and put them to good use. All right, so now I'm going in and I'm just gonna remove a lot of this. All right, so I've already messed up my teeth, but oh well. That's the nice thing about this board. If I'm messing it up, I can always go back and correct those mistakes before I start carving into the pot. A potter I worked with in college by the name of Stephen Knight, he did a lot of these cool sort of Sgraffito carvings on his pots. He would do a lot of, you know, skulls dancing and getting drunk together, or insects crawling on the outside of his piece. And, you know, I haven't seen him in years. I got one cup of his that, you know, I bought at a sale, but wasn't the one I wanted. The ones I wanted were all kind of expensive, like $70, $80, and I didn't have that kind of money when I was in school. All right. So I pretty much got it. Now I'm just gonna go and do a outline and white around it just to make my skull shape pop out a little bit more. There we go. Now I got a pretty fun little skull on here. It's not my best work. I don't think this will be getting hung up in the MoMA anytime soon, but you can tell what it is, and that's a good start. And I kind of like the surface of this, so if I wanted to put this on the outside of my pot, I could, you know, continue this idea and, you know, refine the drawing a little bit more. But me personally, I want to like really emphasize, especially for your first pieces with Sgraffito, like less is more, keep it simple. And me, I love X's and O's. I'm still unraveling what it is that I'm so enamored with by these marks. I think it's because they remind me of so many different points in my life, you know, childhood games of tic-tac-toe, you know, letters from, you know, my grandma, or sweethearts on Valentine's Day with X's and O's for hugs and kisses. I think it has like a lot of, you know, cultural connotations to it, while at the same time, it's a very like simple, you know, mark that, they're two simple marks that have a natural duality. I don't know if there's anything farther from a circle than an X. There's a certain connotation of like creation and destruction. And like, you know, nowadays, like people also use simple X's and O's for, you know, to allude to certain drug use, to allude to love, passion, and just, I don't know, something as simple as a childhood game. So I'm bringing this up to sort of point out some of my own aesthetic tastes, but also what I'm just going to be adorning this pot with. At least for this demo, I really just want to cover this top lobe of my piece going down to here with these like simple X's and O's. I think it's a fun mark. There's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of symbology to unpack with such a simple mark, and I think it looks just really satisfying to me. But I really recommend whatever you choose to do with your Sgraffito, roll out a little test slab, you know, cover it in an underglaze that you're going to use, and just test out some patterns on it. All right, but let's get to it. I want this thing to fit pretty well, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get out my Kemper wire Stylus tool. I'm going to make my first marks. I want to plan out where this stuff is going to go to a large extent, so I'm going to create sort of a grid that I'll be working off of. And I'll do that by drawing 4 X's at the top of my piece. And these 4 X's, here, 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 and here, these are going to be sort of like my compass rose for all of my other marks. I got one that's north, south, east, and west. I'm going to keep it loose too. I'm just going to start doing my O's. Circles are kind of hard. You got to approach them from 2 different directions. I'm really not trying to go too deep. I'm just trying to get that top surface of underglaze off my piece. just gonna keep going. I'm gonna start out with my X's because they're easier to carve. And so wherever there was an O, I'm putting an X underneath it. And wherever there's an X, I'm gonna put an O. I'm just trying to make these marks cleanly. But I want them to have a certain energy to them. So I'm not gonna think about it too much. I'm gonna let the mark be what it wants to be. You know, something I think actually be kind of fun is to maybe actually play some tic-tac-toe on one of these pots one day. Have two people's marks on here. It'd be an interesting collaboration. Mm-hmm. Let's look at that closer. You got a pattern emerging, you know, like, I'm just gonna keep going at this. It's gonna take me a little bit. Yeah, so you get the point though. I'll see you back in real time.